In this video, we're going to disassemble the magazines for a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0. If your magazines have gotten dirty, or you dropped them in the gravel or the dirt, or you got them wet, you're going to want to disassemble it to take it apart, clean it up, and put it back together to make sure it's going to be working 100% for you next time you need it. Always use eye protection when you're going to take a magazine apart because of the springs. Things tend to want to launch into your face. Always verify that your firearms are completely empty of any live ammunition before you start any kind of work. Alright, so first let's start with the flush mount magazine. These magazines are real easy to take apart, and they're actually safer than most. If you look down in here, there's a button right here. So all you need to do is push this down a little bit, and then you can slide the base plate right off of the magazine. So most magazines you want to keep your thumb here because the spring is going to want to jump out on you, but this one is actually kind of captured in there, but I would put my thumb there anyway just in case, and then just pull the base plate off, put that aside, and then it's got a little insert here like a locking plate at the bottom here, and that's just going to come right off. And as you can see, the spring on the Bodyguard 2.0 is actually held in nicely by the edges of the magazine tube. So if you want to get it out, you kind of have to work with the spring a little bit. Just kind of twist it. Do it gently so you don't bend the spring in the wrong way. And then once you get it out, the follower is going to come out with it. For cleaning, you don't really need to take the follower off of there, but it does come off. If you want to take the follower off of the spring, again, it's not necessary, but if you really want to do that, just kind of bend it up like that and pull it out. And always remember that the top of the spring is going to match the angle of the follower, so it's going to go back on that way. Once you have everything apart, you just want to clean everything up. All right, to clean the magazine parts, you have a couple of options. If you want, you can just take a rag, this is just a cut up t-shirt, and just kind of wipe everything down real good and make sure you get up inside the magazine tube. If it's real kind of dirty and cruddy, you can get some solvent. I use Hops number 9. I like to keep it in this little pump dispenser. This is really kind of convenient. You just pump up as much as you need into the little tray up here, and it keeps the rest from getting contaminated, but you don't need anything fancy like that. All right, if it's dirty enough to use solvent, you want to get some nitrile gloves on to protect your hands, and then just get some solvent and just kind of real quickly just kind of wipe everything down. Get a cotton cloth or even a paper towel and just wind the spring through there. Get that nice and clean and dry. All right, once that's nice and dry, just take each piece and kind of wipe them down. If they're not too bad, again, you don't need to put solvent on there. If it's real bad, just get your solvent out there. I might put a little solvent on the follower here, just a little bit. All right, get that nice and cleaned up, and then just make sure you dry it off with a dry patch. Real easy, no rocket science here. And then get every piece. Most importantly is the magazine tube itself. You want to make sure you have no gravel or dirt or little rocks or anything like that in there. Just look through there and make sure it's clear. And if it is, but you think it's real dirty, you can get one of these longer cotton swabs, get a little solvent on there, and just clean it up. You want to make sure you get underneath these feed lips, because that gets pretty dirty right there. Right at the top here, that's where all the rounds are going off right in here, this anyway, so that's going to be the dirtiest part. You can also use a gun brush to get down in there, but I like to push the rag in there with a brush and just kind of clean everything up. All right, make sure everything looks good. And now we just want to put it back together. You don't want to use any lubrication inside your magazine, and that is because if any lube or any oil gets on the ammo you might have in there, it could cause the ammo to fail. So if the magazine is clean, it'll work just fine without any lubrication. All right, and once we're ready to reassemble, we're just going to take this spring. First, we're going to put the follower back on here. The follower is going to go on at this angle, so we want to kind of force that piece in there like that. All right, if you get the tip in there, like kind of force that back into that hole. All right, and once you get it back into the hole like that, your follower is sitting there nice and secure. All right, and then you want to push it into the magazine. This flat side here is the back, and the front is going to be the little more rounded side, and it's got the little notch right here. That's going to go in the front. Okay, so this is the front of the magazine, so it's going to go in this way. So just kind of push it in from the bottom, and once you get to the little wider areas here, you're going to have to kind of work it in underneath the sides. All right, just kind of work it in there until you have the spring down in there and it's captured by the little edges right here. All right, and then once that's in that way, then this base piece is going to go in this orientation, all right, with this little notch toward the front of the magazine, and it's going to sit on the spring like that. Okay, so The spring goes up around this little loop here. It's going to sit in the loop like that. All right, it's going to sit in there kind of like that, and you want to kind of hold that in place. And then get your base plate. The base plate has little notches on the sides here that are going to lock into these ridges here. So you want to push down just a little bit so it slides on like that. See, nice and tight there. And then you're going to have to push this down just a little bit to get that over the top of it. Go all the way to the back. And it may or may not pop back into place. If it doesn't, you can just kind of work this around a little bit until that pops back up like that. And if it doesn't, you can always push down a little bit, get a screwdriver in there and kind of work it around until it pops up like that. And then test to make sure that you can't slide the base plate back off. So grab a hold of it, make sure it's nice and secure. All right, and now you have your magazine put back together. So what I always do after I put a magazine back together, just to make sure everything's working, is I will get some dummy rounds. These are 380 dummy rounds. You want to get the right caliber for the magazine you're using. I'm going to load 5 of these into the magazine. I want to make sure the magazine is going to be working properly when I go to shoot the gun. These are made by Artemis. These are just fake ammunition. They're not real at all, but they're great for testing the functionality of the gun because they're the exact same size as the real rounds would be. And then what I'm going to do to test the magazine is I'm going to take the firearm itself, make sure that it is completely unloaded. Now we're going to take the magazine loaded with dummy rounds, put it into the gun, close the slide, make sure we have loaded one of the dummy rounds into the chamber. Now we're just going to simulate firing the gun by racking the slide briskly 5 times. And what's going to happen is each time I rack the slide, it should extract and eject one dummy round and load a new dummy round from the magazine. If everything's working perfectly, this should go very, very smoothly. So I'm going to pull the slide back and let go 5 times, and after racking it the 5th time, the slide should lock back because the magazine will be empty at that point. All right, so it looks just like this. All right, now each time I rack the slide, one of the rounds was successfully extracted and ejected, and the slide locked back on the empty magazine. All right, so now I am confident that everything's working good with the magazine as well as the firearm. Then if you want, you can repeat this process with the larger magazine. It comes apart pretty much the same. The base plate looks a little bit different, but it comes off the same way. Just press this little button down a little ways, and then the base plate will start to slide off. Put your thumb over top just in case. Remove this part of the base plate. All right, and then this whole bottom piece will lift right off. And then it comes apart the same way as the other one did and goes together the same way as well. All right, if you found this video helpful, please hit like below. Please check out the description for all the products that we used in the video today, including the Artemis 380 ACP dummy rounds. Please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.